Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Media. I am Nik Nikam. I'm one of the photographers. Today I'm going to talk about how to use your Nikon D750 and get portrait style pictures at ordinary events like gala, reception, or any other place, either indoors or outdoors. So let us begin with the feature presentation. First of all, I have Nikon D750, where I have two lenses, namely the kit lens, which is 24 to 120 with a 4.0 focal length. Then I also have a Nikon 85 millimeters 1.8 prime lens. So most of the time I end up using the kit lens because in a party you don't have the flexibility of a fixed distance. So that's why I think I use most often that, but probably since I'm going to be focusing more on candid portraits, which is my specialty, I'm going to be starting to use my prime lens, which is f1.8 85 millimeters, which should be more than adequate. So what I'm going to do is go through some of the things that I have found to be useful and see how we can apply that. The first thing I would say is we need to set the ISO to 100 or 200 at the max. So that is the starting point. By putting the ISO as low as possible, we can get facial features, I guess you can follow this, facial features as clearly as possible without any granular markings on the picture as such. The more ISO you do, the better exposure you get, but at the compromise is the granular pictures, which doesn't really give you the nice look that you're looking for. I'm going to show you some examples of close-up pictures and see what I'm trying to tell you about. The second thing I would do is once I have set my ISO, the aperture is already set by the lens that we use, unless I'm using a kit lens where I can change from f4 to 5.6, whatever it is. The next thing I would do is my flash. I have a real heavy duty Goddox, this is V1. Yes, this is V1N. As you can see, V1N, and it was close to $200, but this is like a monster. The power that is produced by this is just phenomenal. Let me see if I can blind your eyes. Oh gosh, that's too much. I have set it to manual. Always make sure you set it to manual, otherwise it keeps changing. Every time you click, it tries to adjust to that and try to reset the settings. So set it to manual. Right now I'm using only half power, as you can see, and that is plenty. And all of these pictures were taken using the same settings in my camera. Since my ISO is set to 100 or 200, I can literally hit this light straight into people's face without getting any flash burns. And of course, you can see there are some slight flash burns here in the picture here, but some of that can be fixed. And the distance is an important factor when we are using flash. We have to be at least 8 to 10 feet from the subject so that we get very good depth. I mean the distance, so the flash diffuses very uniformly. As you can see, I got this, when I got this camera, I put this on mask, and this was in 2020 and 21, and they said everybody was making fun. Oh, Dr. Nikam has a camera with a mask for his lens also. That was during the COVID. Anyway, so that's the flash, and there are a lot of settings, but I would just set it to manual, 1/4 power or half power or full power, depending upon how much light you have. And if you're using a prime lens, probably you don't need a whole lot of lens because mostly you're doing close-up pictures. We are talking about candid portraits. So the next thing I do is, as you can see in this picture, I hate these backdrops. And especially the lighter the backdrop, the worst is the situation. And I'm going to show you the difference between this one and taking a picture without any backdrop. The backdrops and white colors are the enemy of the photographer, or the camera, I should say, because the camera hates white backdrops, especially when there's bright lights coming from behind. That's a disaster for the making. And look at here. Again, we have the same issue here. All this backdrop, This is not highlighting the candidate. This is drawing attention from the picture. So let's move on and I'll show you some things that I have done to make this different. I always tell people, okay, let's go to the side of this hall and try to take some pictures. And here are some pictures taken just standing in the hallway. By standing in the hallway, as you can see, the person is the main focus of the object. We have all this ancillary stuff. It doesn't matter to me because I can trim these edges and just make this person. And then I'm going to show you some of the things that I am going to be doing in Lightroom to lighten up these things. So here's another picture. As you can see, this has been, I think, yes, it has been trimmed. As you can see, it has been trimmed. You press C to crop. And this has been trimmed and it has gone through some Lightroom adjustments. So let's see what kind of Lightroom adjustments. Oh, I pressed too many times. 18. Okay, so as you can see, here's another picture where there's no backdrop, but I like to, okay, here's another picture. As you can see, without any backdrops, I get a much better focus on this subject. Always avoid backdrops. You want an empty, dark space behind. Unfortunately, they put white curtains, which makes everything kind of messy. And here's another one, which I'm just showing you just the setup. This is just the beginning. And as you can see, and here's a one which has gone through some Lightroom digital makeup, but you get the picture as this. And here's another one. And this is raw picture. And by the time we finish, it will be quite different. Let me see if I can pull up one of these. Another one, and this is the one which I was showing you before. Let me see if I can pull up some of the stuff which really makes things stand out. And as you can see, here's one which is sort of a finished picture. You don't see any flash burns. You see uniform skin color. My focus is to accent the tones and features, not to make everybody look white, not to look everybody plastic, not to make everybody look like Barbie doll. That is not my purpose. The purpose is to replicate the reality. As you can see here, this is, again, when people with little brown color and the light color come together, the camera has to kind of adjust to those colors. And let's see, couple of things I need to show, and then I'll go to Lightroom and see what things we do. And here's another one. That's sort of a finished product, and there are a few blemishes here which we're going to fix in the Lightroom. Okay, so to summarize, first of all, I use the lowest ISO. That's my starting point. That sets the rest of the stuff. Number 2, 8 to 10 feet from the subject. Number 3, use maximum amount of light you can get from your flash to light up the subject. Backdrop should be empty, dark space. And the shutter speed should be anywhere from 1/60th to 1/25th or 1/250th second. It all depends on, since you are doing still pictures, it doesn't matter the shutter speed. And once your shutter speed is done, your f-stop is fixed if you're using a prime lens, or if you're using a zoom lens, because in an event, you cannot always use prime lens because of distance constraints. So for just everyday purpose, I just use the kit lens, and then that way I can adjust it. Still, I may have to crop these images when I get back. Once we get all these pictures, the next thing is we're going to go to the Lightroom here and see what are the things. In the Lightroom, some of the things I would do would be like if I need to bump up the exposure, I just bump up the exposure. Generally, I turn on the blacks. Just look at the hair for matter. See, look at the hair. And also it makes the background dark. So that's something I would highlight by just increasing the blacks. Same thing with the shadows. As you can see, if you can increase the shadows, it makes the subject brighter, whereas the surroundings become shadow. I wouldn't play much with contrast because that's going to mess up the people. Like if I want to remove this spot, which is fairly simple, we come to the spot remover, healing brush here. And if I can, There you go. The spot is gone. That's how, that's a little bit beyond that. Now that spot is gone, and you hardly see flash burn, even though I was standing like 6 to 8 feet from the subject, because sometimes they just don't move backwards when we tell them to move. That's another issue. Now we come back to the effects, where you can bring down the texture and clarity, which will make the skin smoother. And this is an important thing, like vignette. Let me see if I can remove this vignette, see what the picture looks like. This is like everyday ordinary picture, but when you bring the vignette, it puts a dark circle around like an oval circle, and now we got a beautiful picture. Like this texture, if I put it back to where it is supposed to be, see, you got some rough skin spots. I shouldn't say that. The ladies may not like it. But by just adjusting, 10, 15, 18%, 20% max, you get a beautiful picture. And this is taken ordinary picture as they were just standing. Hey, can you take my picture? I said, yes. There you go. It's like what I call candid portraits. I hope some of these points have been useful to you. And as I said, if you want to add a border to that, you can order a border. And by using the scale, I usually leave it at 94%, 97%. So we get a nice thin border. But when you trim the picture, you don't get the correct border. To overcome that one, what you need to do is you save that picture, bring it back into Lightroom, and then use this geometry and scale it to 97, 96%. Then you get a beautiful border. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a quick crash course on doing candid portraits on the run. Thank you so much for watching, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. I will see you in the next video.